Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Silver has dropped a lot overnight, and I'm not surprised. I wasn't that enthusiastic Sunday night and yesterday. Yes, I was positive, but in my view, the fundamentals are going to keep driving gold and silver higher. There's been comments from Fed presidents that prove that they can't stop inflating the system. But there's also a lot of double standards I want to talk about. I received yesterday, for example, this from one of my viewers, a statement by the acting chairman of the CFTC. CFTC is the Commodities Futures and Trading Commission. For the last 20 years, the small investor in silver, trader in silver as well, and I've been following this, has been complaining to the CFTC about the manipulation not only of silver but also of gold. They did do an investigation a few years ago. There's one commissioner there. I think he's passed on, unfortunately. He wanted to look into it, and they didn't. I mean, there's a big commission that they started to investigate. The thing is, the people who manipulate really the paper, silver market and gold market, which is what the Comex is. And the Comex, by the way, trades almost 24/7. Yes, it has an official open, the old floor open at 8:20 a.m. New York time, but it trades all around the world through the screen. And so yes, the small guy has been complaining for years, and the CFTC doesn't do anything. I've seen for years, since '02, every time, it's always at the same time. When the regular hour open comes on the Comex, you see gold and silver get slammed down. When you have the fixing in London, after that, the paper price gets slammed. We've seen, of course, if you've been following gold and silver closely, that a lot of times we see drops out of nowhere, like a waterfall drops, sometimes contracts enough to equal the mining production of silver for 1 year in a matter of hours. So this is what he said yesterday, this acting chairman, Roostin Behnam. Never heard of the guy. I tried to find some information about him. There's not much. This is the statement. Commodity Futures Trading Commission Acting Chairman Roostin Behnam released the following statement regarding recent trading in the silver markets. And I quote this guy. He doesn't know anything about the futures market, I would bet. He says, the CFTC is closely monitoring recent activity in the silver markets, said Acting Chairman Behnam. The Commission is communicating with fellow regulators, the exchanges and stakeholders to address any potential threats to the integrity of the derivatives market for silver. So you see, I've been telling you, you need to get physical, because this is not really the market for silver. This is for the derivatives on silver. But this is the kicker here that's really hypocritical, and remains vigilant in surveilling these markets for fraud and manipulation. Well, go look at JP Morgan, Mr. Behnam, not the small guy. And this is quite amazing, because silver, yes, it picked up yesterday, but the technical picture looks really good. So now the regulators, any move higher in things that they don't like, they'll come and crack down on it. But when the big guys like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, HSBC, all the big bullion banks, when they slam the price of gold, when they manipulate the price of gold, they don't call it fraud and manipulation. And I think that came out yesterday. And I think that could be one of the reasons why the markets came off. But I'm going to talk about something else called a gap. I think silver is basically filling a gap it left, which is actually quite positive. As I've said, this is the derivatives market for silver. So there is no silver in these markets. I mean, when there was the CFTC investigation into the silver market rigging, I think Bill Murphy was involved in that. He was called in to testify. A few other people, and yeah, they proved that these bullion banks, they borrow silver that doesn't exist. They borrow gold that doesn't exist. So we need to be smart, and we can defeat the bullion banks. Yes, we can. We're more numerous than they are, and we do something that they don't. We go out and buy. Yesterday, I bought a few coins, not that many, 10 Philharmonics. They're the Austrian 1-ounce coins. I should be getting them tomorrow from Gold Investments. They're running out as well of physical. So yeah, we have to strike them where they're not expecting us to. We can't try to play their game in the futures market, because that futures market is driven by infinite amount of credit that the Federal Reserve pumps into the bullion banks, and the bullion banks can just play around with the people in the futures market. What we need to focus on, keep going after the physical, keep buying as much as you can, not only silver but also gold as well, I would say, and keep drying up the supply, because if we do that, the Comex will become irrelevant. That's what we want the Comex to become. But if people keep playing the game on the Comex with the big guys, we're never gonna see really what silver needs to do. The analogy is like trying to beat the mafia at their own game. You need to be a bit more clever. They went after Al Capone through his taxes, right? So yeah, Sun Tzu, Chinese philosopher, Art of War. I've got the one for traders and investors, but I think the most important lesson is that you need to know your enemy and his weaknesses, and it's still the physical. And now to the fundamentals. I said in the beginning of the video that the fundamentals are still there for the continued debasement of the Federal Reserve note. I don't even like to call it a dollar, because if you watch the last two videos I made, part 1 and 2, in the last couple of weeks, the origin of the dollar, and I recommend you watch that, because for some reason, maybe people didn't like it, but, or maybe YouTube kind of shadow banned it, don't have too many views. Watch that and you see what a real dollar is, because what we have today is not real money. So yeah, the Federal Reserve note is going to continue to be debased. They're going to keep printing. Yesterday we had a comment from a former Goldman Sachs banker who's now the president of the Minneapolis Fed, which is a private bank anyway. Fed's Kashkari says need to keep up support for economy. No, I think he means for Wall Street, not the economy. U.S. Central Bank and Congress have responded more to the COVID-19 crisis than they did in the last crisis. Well, they have to keep doing that. Every crisis that comes up, it's more and more because the system is unhinged. Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neel Kashkari said, and they need to do still more to return the economy faster to its pre-crisis footing. And this is what he said here. Right now, I'm not concerned about it. Of course he's not. It's not his money. It's our wealth that they're debasing by creating all this debt. This is like wartime spending, he said. And the other thing he said, we have the capacity to do what we need to do. I think he said last year as well, we can print as much money as we want. That's Kashkari. And believe it or not, I think they're setting this guy up maybe to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve Board. We'll see. Another bankster, this is from the private Dallas Fed, Fed's Kaplan. It says, to return to normal, we need aggressive fiscal and Fed action. Well, you see, the Fed is not supposed to opine on fiscal policy because their remit is monetary policy, but that's gone out the window. They don't care. So this is this Muppet here from the Dallas Fed. And if you look at the Fed's balance sheet, it's they add up the balance sheet of all these private banks, the 12 private banks, member banks of the Federal Reserve System. So the New York Fed is the big daddy, of course. It's got the biggest balance sheet. So we're helping support private banks' balance sheet when Uncle Sam borrows money into existence, and these people just buy it out of thin air, these assets. So Dallas Fed Bank President Kaplan on Monday said the U.S. economy still needs help from both the central bank and from Congress to get the economy back to a more healthy footing as quickly as possible. This is completely upside down because the economy is created. The economy is you and I, people producing things, creating services, investing in new businesses. Congress and a bunch of guys in a bank in Dallas or Minneapolis don't do anything. This is the great Keynesian fallacy that money out of thin air or currency printed out of thin air helps the economy. The best thing these guys can do is leave the economy alone, open everything up. We can't live in an economy that's shut down. But his solution, of course, is more money and credit. And this is what he says. We're still in the teeth of this pandemic. And we're not out of the woods yet, said Kaplan. We need to be aggressive in our fiscal and monetary policy actions. And I am hopeful that by doing that, we will ultimately get beyond this pandemic. So he's so deluded that he thinks money and credit can actually help beat a pandemic. Back to the silver market here and see where the markets are this morning. I spoke about a gap. Yeah, so I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. I used to work with him in the city, and he's a silver investor. He's a gold investor. He's still in the city. And if you look at this chart here, the high from Friday was around 27.66, and yesterday when we opened Sunday night or Sunday afternoon in the States, silver just opened above that level. So there's a big gap there from the low yesterday to the high on Friday. And there's an old saying in the markets that gaps are always filled. So the market will always come back to fill that gap. Or if it's the other way around on the downside, the market will come back up to fill that gap. But that's usually a very bullish sign that the market goes and retests that gap or closes that gap. And this is what we just done here while I've been making the video. So let's look at the longer term picture as well for silver. So yeah, it's still looking pretty good. Of course, the bullion banks are going to try to paint a double top there around 30. I still think gold and silver very positive. And but I knew it wasn't going to be smooth sailing because I've been following the markets, as you know, for almost 20 years, the precious metals at least. So it's 8:30 a.m. London. Gold, of course, has been brought down as well. It's down $13 at 1847. High is 1866. Low 1844. So silver, yeah, the gap was around 2760. So we got down to 2745. Now we're at 2750, down 5%. The stock market, of course, always goes up. It doesn't matter. I wonder if Mr. Behnam from the CFTC is going to investigate this raid on silver overnight. I don't think so. I wouldn't hold your breath. So yeah, the Dow's up 0.75%, Dow future. S&P is up 0.75 as well, and the Nasdaq the same. So stock market doing well. The currencies are fairly firm. We've got the pound up about 1/3% at 137.02. The euro is up 0.2 at 120.84. Yesterday, the dollar did do well, despite the fact that gold and silver went up. And as I've said, it doesn't always work that the dollar has to go down for gold and silver to go up, because since 2008, when the dollar bottomed, the dollar index, I hate saying dollar, but it's a Federal Reserve note. But when it bottomed at 70.69, gold was at 1,000, and now we're around 90, the dollar index, and gold is at 1850 almost. So yeah, I think the next move higher in gold and silver that I think we're seeing the beginnings of, it's going to be a move higher, not just versus the dollar, but all the other fiat currencies. The dollar is unchanged versus the yen at 104.88 and down slightly versus the yuan at 646. Copper is down 0.8%. Crude is still very strong. WTI crude is at 54.30, up 1.5%. So there you go. Yeah, don't get discouraged by the move in silver. Keep stacking. That's the only thing you can do. Just think about, do you really want to finance Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, an out-of-control Uncle Sam? Because that's what you do when you hold on to Federal Reserve notes or fiat currency or dollars, if you want to call it. The only way to be outside the system and fight them is to buy physical silver and gold. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And you can also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Hive, DTube, BitChute, Steemit, and Library. I wish you all a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.